Hi, everyone. My name is Amber Peterson. I am with Permy and Peterson Associates, and this is our last installment for now of the Pop-Up Health Conversations. We've been doing this for a little while, being quarantined in COVID and taking some different topic or a different topic every week. And this week is about meaning and how we're making meaning during this time. Because for some of us, just as we talked about with our purpose, our meaning may also have changed, shifted, been challenged, lots of different parts of that. So let's cover some of that today. So for our conversation, we're going to skip the introductions for now, although you will see my email at the end, and I would love to hear from you, how you're doing, what you're up to, how this time is challenging your meeting, and let's have a discussion. So with that, meaning, why is it so important to pay attention to right now during this time? It's a big thing. It's a big part of our lives. And a few weeks ago, I touched on purpose. We actually had a whole conversation about purpose. And I wanted to just define quickly again, what's the difference between the two? Because a lot of times we get these two things confused, meaning and purpose. And they are closely linked, but they are different. So as where purpose is, what drives us, what motivates us to work towards our values and our goals. Meaning is everything that underlies it. It's the value, significance, importance, all of that we find in our lives. And it's really the story we tell ourselves about what is important to us and what happens to us. What does it all mean when it does happen to us? So with that, let's talk about the tripartite theory of meaning. Now, I brought this up a few weeks ago, and I wanted to rehash it here really quick because we're hitting the center today. We're hitting the whole meaning. Now, George and Park, this was their research back in 2016. They found that meaning in life really comes down to three different components, and it's purpose, comprehension, and mattering. So again, we touched on purpose, right? What motivates us in our lives. Mattering has to do with how the degree to which I feel significant or I feel valued, or maybe what I find significant and what I value in my life, what matters to me most. And then comprehension is that how everything fits together. We actually talked about comprehension last week in the sense of routine, but in the bigger sense, when we link it back to meaning, how do things come together for us? And what story do we tell ourselves about how they come together? Important about that. So what gives us meaning in the end, right? Could be education, could be knowledge, and gathering how much knowledge am I gathering throughout my life? What is my work? What kind of meaning does my work give me? For a lot of people, this is their meaning. It has to revolve around their work. Maybe it's around activities and the way that I interact with other people, either relationships or just the day-to-day pieces that help my life fit together. Could be structure, just the structure of how I have structured my life gives me meaning. And sometimes these things, we hit roadblocks. And what these are called meaning violations. And so this might be, a meaning violation might be a deviation in what we know. And I put know in quotations because it's what we know in our hearts and on our souls. Well, I know this is how things are supposed to be in the world. And sometimes that gets challenged. Or my knowing gets, there's a deviation from my knowing. Well, that wasn't what I know. Why is this happening? It might be a seemingly lack of meaning in a situation. Now, that might be that maybe I get cancer and I go, why? Why is this happening? There's got to be a meaning. There's got to be a reason behind this. And maybe there isn't. Maybe it doesn't feel like there is, that it's just something that just happened. Coincidence. Or a challenge to our worldview. And I threw this picture in here of these two people standing next to each other because right now this is a huge challenge for all of us in our worldviews. In our pre-COVID world, we could stand next to each other. We could give each other a hug. We could use the same device and tap it without having to worry, well, then I touch my face, or I maybe did I wash my hands before this for 20 seconds? There's a lot of reasons for us now to wonder, what does this mean for us? What is this going to look like going forward out of COVID, that we can be with each other in the same space? And the question comes down to is, that I come out of this with is, what is our level of comprehension? What was our level of comprehension prior to the trauma or unexpected event? The unexpected event, of course, being COVID here, but we could apply this in many different spheres. So what was our level of comprehension? What was our resilience? How were we making meaning for ourselves prior to this happening? This is something that we have in place, hopefully, to fall back on. And I will say that it's never too late to build our resilience. Even now, even in this moment, there are ways that we can build our resilience. For a deeper view into resilience, you can go back into the archives a few weeks back and watch the video, the recording that we did on resilience. But I'll say now, it's really comes down to our mindset and the stories that we're telling ourselves. So the meaning that we are making out of our experiences and situations. And the model that I wanted to introduce today, I love this one. My business partner showed me this the first time, and we use it frequently when we talk about making meaning of situations or making meaning of culture is where we generally use this. But it's called the 4-room apartment. And what the 4-room apartment does is it gives us a framework for thinking, where am I now? Because when we think about meaning, it's really, how are we feeling about a situation? And what are we taking away from this experience? That's what it boils down to. So the 4-room apartment, if you look at these 4 rooms, we'll look at contentment first, up in the upper left-hand corner there. Now, contentment says, okay, things are good. I know my situation. I know what's going on. I know what's happening in the world. The I know part, right? Solid. Then we might get some information, potentially, that throws us into denial, which, by the way, we can go anywhere in this 4-room apartment, right? But maybe we go to denial and say, that could be true. What is that? Who said that? What's going on here? I don't think this applies to me. I don't think this is going to have a big impact or whatnot. Then we might go over to confusion to say, as I'm trying to get my head around the situation, I don't know what's going on. I'm really confused by this situation, and I'm not sure what to make of it. Haven't made up my mind yet. And after some time of thinking and wondering, pondering, maybe researching, digging in, talking to people, we hopefully come back up to renewal. And that would mean that I've taken in my information. I feel better about it now. I have a better grasp of what's going on. I feel a sense of renewal. I feel a sense of I can move forward. And the thing about the 4-room apartment is we can swap between any of these rooms at any time in a matter of seconds, in a matter of hours, days, weeks. And we can be experiencing, if I have my friend next to me and we are experiencing the same situation, we could be in completely different places at different times, maybe crossing over into the same path sometimes, but it's really down to the individual experience and what we feel at the time. So where I want to use this model to apply it to our COVID situation is to stop and pause to say, what meaning are we making of this particular thing right now? And we can think about it on many different scales. We can think about right now in this hour, maybe in the discussion we're going to have after this. What meaning are we making out of that discussion? It could be, how did my day go as a whole today? Now, yesterday, it could have been last week when our governor here in Minnesota said, we're going to extend the stay-at-home order for 2 more weeks. And maybe I needed to stop and pause to think about that conversation, that day, that week, how that all formed with my family and with me in making meaning out of that situation. But the absolute key for meaning is to pause and think, reflect on, what meaning are we making out of this? It's the meaning making that really helps us, either can hold us in place or can help us move forward. So one example that I want to give here really quick, when we link mindset and meaning together, and I love this. I heard this example when I was studying positive psychology. Martin Seligman, I think he gave this example, father of positive psychology. So he said, a bank is robbed. And there are many people in the bank, but we boil down to 2 people's stories. The first person who's in this situation in the bank robbery, they're shot, maybe in the leg, non-lethal, okay? They're shot in the leg, it's an adult. And they come out of that situation and they say, Man, that was the worst day of my life. I was shot. How unlucky was I to be in the bank at that time? That's not even the time I usually go to the bank. But I was there and I was so unlucky not only to be there when this happened, but to be shot while I was there. Oh, terrible. Worst day of my life. Um, and now the second person, maybe who's also shot in this situation, adult, again, non-lethal, they're not dying, but they reflect on the situation and they have a different mindset and they say, okay, not my best day. Okay, yes, I was shot as a part of this bank robbery, which wasn't lucky on my part. And you know, I am so fortunate that I wasn't hurt seriously, so I'm going to survive. And you know, there was a pregnant woman there, there were children in the bank, and none of them were shot, which is so fortunate that I was the one who was shot and not them. And I'm going to live. Now, same situation, two different lenses. So mindset, it's what we make of our situation and how the meaning making that we have walking away from it. So we can walk away from this having a negative mindset, negative meaning making, saying this was the absolute worst time in our lives and reinforcing that in our minds and our hearts. Or we can walk away from COVID, this time when we're all in quarantine, and saying, you know, I made hay where I could, and I'm gonna, anything that I didn't like about that situation, I'm gonna dump, and the rest I'm gonna, any great habits I created or new things that I tried that I really liked, I'm gonna take forward with me. And I'm gonna take this as a learning time. This was a learning situation. So it's, we can, what's important here is that we can have the feelings where we're depressed or frustrated or angry. That's okay to have those feelings. It's natural and healthy. And to remember that, what is the story that we're going to tell ourselves when we leave this time? So to recap, bring it all back together, and you'll notice this is the Adaptive Action Cycle, Human Systems Dynamics Institute, great website. So to recap, finding meaning in our present situation. What am I experiencing now? First, I assess, what am I experiencing? What's the story I'm telling myself? Maybe where am I in the forum apartment? I could also be asking myself, if I'm assessing what I need to dump and leave behind or what I need to take with me as I move out of the situation, what activities are bringing me joy and fulfillment right now? What is giving me meaning? That's our what. Then we make meaning out of it, our so what. We ask ourselves the question, what does this mean to me? Are these things bringing me joy and fulfillment? How is this all impacting my life? I'm making meaning. This is really the meat of it. This is the meaning making of the whole cycle. And then moving forward, I put read, ask, look, dig in, think about what's my next move? What options do I have to tweak my current situation? What options do I have to make meaning out of this? How can I get maybe more involved in things that I'm really finding joy and fulfillment of? Who can I share that joy with? That's a big one. We know that we're happier when we share with others or when we can help someone else. Those are two big components. So how can I do that? Now, how do I do that? How do I take the action? So with that, I want to say thank you for being here with me today. Or if you're not at the live presentation here, that you are tuning in later, and reach out. I want to hear from you. It would be lovely to have a conversation about what meaning that you're making out of this situation, and maybe the patterns that you're seeing or how you're feeling moving forward. What are you going to take with you? What story are you going to tell yourself about this time?